just to set the scene for anyone who doesn't know who you are as the power couple at the Green Bank, Nedbank, having started your journey in 2017, yours in 2015. I mean, it's been a while.
Much longer, by the way, for Mike.
Yeah. It has been a while.
Yeah.
Just what has your experience of growing into this relationship been like over the years? And what are the most interesting insights you've developed from experiencing each other's functions in relation to what you do in your job? I'll start with you, Khensani.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, I joined Nedbank in November 2017, and I joined Exco in May 2018. And when I joined, Mike was already on Exco. At that time, he wasn't our CFO, he was our group executive for balance sheet management, which, and if you know balance sheet banks, right? Like, so it was a very important job. But I always actually reflect on this, and I told Mike this actually. You can imagine, like, a lot of people like who know me, I'm very chill. I wear sneakers, I throw in F's here and there and stuff, right? And when I joined Exco, I have to be honest, Mike was actually one of the most warmest, welcoming people. For me, and I hadn't been at a bank for that long, right? I think I'd been in the bank for 7 months before I got promoted. I come from typical FMCG. I worked at Vodacom for 3 years. So getting into a banking environment, and then you get on Exco, and all of a sudden, you must be presenting to boards and all of this. And to have people that felt like, and I didn't know at that time, but he felt like a guy who I could count on. And I think that's quite important in the relationship, because there must be, before you even get to the work, you don't have to be friends, but before you even get to the work, there must be a level of just connectivity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's sort of the first time I interacted with him, and then he became our CFO in 2020.
And how was that for you? You seeing another person who's coming to spend all the money on tweets and billboards and events. What's that journey been like for you?
Yeah. So as Khensani indicated, I joined Nedbank back in 1997.
Wow. They're treating you well. Hey?
I've been with the organisation a long time. I mean, the reason I've stayed with the organisation, I love the culture, I love the people, I love the brand. So I've been there for 25 years. I joined Group Exco, having relocated from KwaZulu-Natal in 2003. Joined Exco in 2015. As Khensani indicated, is the head of a very technical part of the Exco type role, and then had the privilege of becoming the chief financial officer right in the middle of COVID.
Wow.
So, as the CFO, you sort of own the numbers, you own the results, and you've got to go on the road and tell the story, tell the narrative to sell side, buy side, international investors, etc. So being appointed in that particular role was tough, because obviously all the banks, all corporates globally, financial performance tanked, and you had to own that set of numbers, going on the road. So appointed as CFO 2020. Again, love my new role. As Khensani indicated, she joined sort of in between my previous role and this role. And, as part of that new role, I immediately said, Khens, I want to join the brand committee, and I want to get closer to marketing. And one thing about people, everyone's got a view when it comes to marketing.
Oh, absolutely.
Everyone
Everyone's a creative.
Sell and market, and Khens, you're doing this wrong. And so, but anyway, so I said, I want to join. So I joined brand committee, and as a result, we spend more time working closer together.
And that's important. I just want to actually touch on the brand com, right? So banks have got a lot of committees, let me tell you, right? But one of the committees from a marketing and brand perspective is called the brand committee. And normally the people who sit on it is our CEO, COO, strategy, and then the people who run the businesses, so corporate investment bank, retail and business bank. There was no CFO ever on that committee, because I'm sure they were just like, those people, what are they talking about? Like, I'm completely not interested. But when Mike said to me that he wanted to sit on Brandcom, that already told me that he thought of brand and marketing very differently, right, from how anyone else thinks about it. And then secondly, I think what's important around not being invited because I actually did the same to him on the transactional balance sheet the TBF, transactional balance sheet forum. I went to him and I said, Mike, like, I hear that's a really important committee in terms of, and I invited myself, and he said, yeah, join. And I think a lot of times, whether you're a marketer or you wait to get invited onto things and actually don't. Like, if you want to make an impact and you want to learn and you want to be able to like really drive things in the organization, figure out what are the committees that will help you do that, and just invite yourself on them.
It's so important that you pointing out I suppose you're wanting to understand his world and him wanting to understand your world, because I suppose context really informs how we make decisions, right? So that's a wiser Mike, a wiser Khensani. Let's flash back to when you were your younger selves, the younger financial manager, the younger brand manager. What would you tell the younger self now about the importance of establishing this interest in someone else's function that benefits yours?
So look, I mean, firstly, I'm very lucky that I come from FMCG background, because as you would know, if you are a brand manager on Rama Margarine, you manage the entire P&L of the brand, including R&D, supply chain, like all of that, right? Like, and Unilever marketers, we are developed and trained to run the businesses. But I think I always looked at finance people as bean counters, right? Like, as you're taking numbers that other people are doing. You're not doing nothing except just taking the numbers, putting them on a spreadsheet and telling us. Right? Like, that's how I used to think about it. And that's such an unfortunate way to think, because if I reflect back on it and I look at Mike's impact at Nedbank, actually, finance people can be growth drivers. So it's not like they wait for everyone else to do something, but they're actually the ones who can decide and recommend, like, that this is where you should spend your money to drive growth. I mean, we said it to you earlier on, SPT2, right? So we've got...
Yes, SPT targets, exclamation mark.
And he can like speak a lot more about it, which is really around our strategic portfolio and where we spend our money and where we want to grow, like those sort of decisions. For the CFO to be driving that conversation, I think is quite powerful, because in my head, I always looked at finance people as just adding up numbers from what everyone else was doing. Had I realized that at a younger age, I think I would have had a much stronger career, because I think I would have partnered with my finance people to talk about growth. And in fact, I think my understanding of the P&L, I had a very sort of linear consumer marketing understanding of it. I think I would have had a much broader understanding, to the extent where Mike and I actually have once a month meetings, just him and I, where he helps like me. So our results right now that we took to the market, he took me through that entire thing, just the two of us, so that I could ask him questions and stuff. And that's important, like we invest in each other in that way. So, and then, he can ask me questions from a marketing perspective. And that's just us and our relationship. So I wish I had known that as a 20-year-old and invested in that.
Oh, wow. Mike, do you wish you had met her 20 years ago too?
I think I'd be exhausted.
I hear you.
Yeah, so I mean, reflecting on a similar question, if a younger version of myself and how I would have engaged more with marketing, I think from a finance perspective, and certainly as the CFO, you've got, first of all, you own the results. So you own the results, the market looks to you to own the results, and that means you've got to own it from top-line revenue growth, costs or expenses, impairments, consumption of capital, balance sheet size, shape, etc., etc. And one of those very important income statement lines is the income statement. I mean, in the income statement is the expenses line. So when you get into a conversation around who needs money for costs or expenses, and marketing is an area that consumes equity or capital in the form of costs,
It's an investment.
Yeah, so do we look at it as a cost? It presents as a cost, but obviously to the extent that you can leverage that into value creation, it is an investment. So I and the finance community needs to be able to work better with the marketing community to understand, if we're going to deploy capital into X, how do we best reflect or leverage that spend into some form of value creation? And is it short term or is it long term? So a short-term spend needs to translate into something quite quickly, or is it more a investment that is more broad-based in growing the brand that presents in value creation at a later stage? So again, as my advice to a younger me would be, get close to your marketing colleagues, understand what they're looking to deploy capital into, understand how to tell the story with regards to the investment rather than simply an expense, and simultaneously educate your marketing colleagues, work collectively or collaboratively to better understand that relationship between spend and value creation, because it's so much easier for the marketing teams to ask the finance people for cash if we both understand what the cash is going to get used for. And it's important also, I believe, for the marketing teams to be able to demonstrate that that spend has created that value creation, not simply by way of increased number of tweets or increased number of boards we have out there in terms of sort of hard marketing, or increased time in terms of TV or social media time. How is that translating to value? And value means, at the end of the day, it means for a bank or for a corporate, it means presenting in the end of the day effectively profitability, and profitability on a risk-adjusted basis. And that's the reality of life. So again, those young marketing people, young finance teams have got to get closer together, and they've got to collaborate, and they've got to help each other.
And how do you, in the business now, encourage that interest? I suppose from people, the left brain people just want to bean count. Your right brainers just want to draw. Now you're asking people to actually take a keen interest in someone else's function when there's so little time. Everyone's got their own KPIs that they're chasing. How do you actually foster that that kind of learning culture and that environment in your own little circle?
So firstly, I can't draw, right? I always laugh when I say, guys, we're not pretty pictures people. It's too public to do that, because otherwise I'd be in advertising, right?
Yeah.
I think people forget that marketing is about growth of organizations and businesses. And when you go back to that, I think it'll anchor you. But I think what Mike D was referring to is around the whole idea of return on marketing investment, which I think is an incredible challenge for most organizations. Yeah. It's definitely a challenge for us at the bank. It's probably on my list of my top 3 challenges. Return on marketing investment is probably number 1, because it's not. In fact, we were having a conversation earlier on. So if you look at one of our biggest challenges, which is around our deposits, growing market share in deposits, we've certainly deployed our marketing spend into that space to grow our market share there, and we can see the results. It's great. And you can see the minute we went onto TV, nice, you're public, right? You can already see what the numbers look like. But we have to get to a space where you actually have serious attribution, that you can articulate that it went from these different channels to that, right? And at the moment, we're not there. It's a massive focus for us. So one of our executive heads of marketing for RBB Bully is leading a project for us at the bank around return on marketing investment. And I say that, so when you talk about how do you foster it, the thing that I keep on saying to the marketing team is that if we want, I love winning awards. It's lovely, Grand Prix Louis is nice.
And it's nice to be in Cannes.
It's very nice. But we don't deserve a seat on any exco table or board table if fundamentally we're not driving business growth and profitable business growth. And if we can't show how marketing adds to that, then we don't deserve any seat on the table. And in fact, I was saying to my marketing team about 3 weeks ago, if you look globally, CMOs, they are lasting in their jobs. I think the timing was about 48 months. CEOs are lasting in their jobs about 56 months. And generally what happens is CMOs and CEOs last in their jobs around the same time globally. But what you're seeing is CMOs' time in jobs actually decreasing. Right. And you know why? Because the challenge on us to prove why we deserve the budgets that we get has become even more important. Now, if you're a marketer And I have to convince you in my team that you must understand the numbers, you must understand your role in growing those numbers, you must understand what levers to pull. And you look at me and go, no, but I must just do ads. You're in the wrong team. And so that's a big focus that I'm trying to drive around how commercial the marketing team at Nedbank is. We're definitely not there, but it is certainly like the biggest piece of the agenda, because otherwise I shouldn't be on Exco.
What for you as a CFO makes you or helps you make the decisions that you have to make with such a sensitive topic, which is the money? What convinces you to allocate that spend before a person can show you the numbers and prove to you the value? Because sometimes we don't have that data. It's a new concept, it's a new thing that we're trying to do, and we can't prove it to you now, we'll prove it to you later. But what can a marketer say to you that will convince you to allocate that money and put your head on the chopping block?
So first and foremost, unfortunately, in a competitive environment, the pool is always limited. So whether it's the GT guys coming to ask for spend across technology, whether it's effectively your HR people looking, for an increase around salary increases or STRs, LTRs, whether it's effectively the marketing guys coming to ask for a marketing budget, it's always, again, a tough conversation. Because if it wasn't, then we're not working or operating in a competitive environment because the pools are limited. So, and Kinsey's right. I mean, it starts with HR. I mean, people are our number one asset. And again, that consumes the biggest part of our expense base. The second is certainly technology. And then there are a number of other pieces. And then there's marketing. Risk, compliance. And then marketing. So that is the process we go through. We go through that process through a bottom-up process where, in the case of marketing, Khensani works across the frontline business units. She works with her team, and then she presents a bottom-up budget. And we all look at each other, and we get together as a Group Exco team, and we look at Fred's bit around technology, and Deb's around HR, and Khensani's around marketing, and Trevor's around risk, and Dalian's around compliance. And we add it all up, and we say, too much, guys. Ladies, we're going to have to go back to the drawing board. We don't have an endless pool, because the competitors out there are also going to look to reduce their cost-to-income ratios. So it's always a tough and challenging process and/or environment. And the bottom line is, Ken's got a hard sell to Group Exco. We've got to motivate to Group Exco why we think we've got to allocate that amount to marketing. And my advice is back to where this conversation started. And exactly what Khensani said in terms of her number one objective. Exco, the board, will look for value creation for the spend that you're asking for. And that's where we've got to be able to draw the lines, the clear line between if we spend X, we think it's going to give us the following client number uplift, cross-sell metrics, whatever it is, that translates into real value creation. And that's got to translate into bottom line profitability. When it comes to the distinction between short-term profits and long-term investment in the brand, we recognize that sometimes we're going to have to put money behind something that's not going to pay back or give us the payback now. It's something that's going to give us the payback over time and building out that brand. So we've got to be able to recognize long-term value creation versus short-term value uplift or value creation. And the bottom line is you might spend and build the most magnificent brand over 10 years. But if you can't afford it in the first 9 years, you won't be around to enjoy the brand in 10 years' time. So it's always that compromise, short-term profitability versus long-term value creation.